Humans don't obey, they rewrite the rules. The Council had written laws older than the stars. Every species obeyed them. Every world bent to their will. Every except one. When humanity arrived, the galaxy expected submission. Instead, the humans laughed, broke every rule, and rewrote the game itself. The newcomers. The Galactic Council had been monitoring the same 300 civilizations for nearly a millennium when they discovered humanity. It wasn't through any grand announcement or technological achievement that Earth made itself known. Instead, it was a quantum signature from what the humans called a particle accelerator that caught the attention of a bored Thraxian, scientist running routine, scans of the Outer Rim territories. Ambassador, Velnari of the Celestial Harmony floated into the council chamber, her translucent form shimmering with confusion. She had been chosen to make first contact with this new species, and what she found had left her thoroughly perplexed. The other council members, representing the galaxy's most powerful civilizations, waited for her report with varying degrees of interest. The humans, she began, her melodic voice carrying across the vast chamber, are perhaps the most unusual species we've encountered. She paused, searching for the right words. When I arrived at their world with our standard first contact protocols, offering them protection under our laws and a place in the galactic community, their leader asked me if I wanted something called coffee and whether I had traveled far. The Zafrani representative, a massive crystalline being whose species controlled nearly a quarter of known space, rumbled with what passed for laughter among his kind. Another primitive species overwhelmed by our magnificence. How refreshingly predictable. Velnari's form flickered, a sign of disagreement. That's just it, Supreme Executor Krax. They weren't overwhelmed. They weren't even particularly surprised. Their leader, someone they call President Martinez, simply said, "We figured you were out there." Want to trade? The council chamber erupted in discussion. Most species, upon learning they weren't alone in the universe, went through predictable stages. Shock, fear, awe, and eventually, careful integration. The humans had skipped all of that and gone straight to business. What manner of creatures are these humans? Asked the Vorthan representative, a serpentine being whose species prided themselves on their diplomatic acumen. Velnari projected a hologram of Earth and its inhabitants. Bipedal mammals, average intelligence by galactic standards, currently confined to one star system with a few mining operations in nearby asteroids. Their technology is perhaps 200 years behind the galactic average. However, she paused again, they possess certain unusual characteristics. The projection showed humans in various activities: construction workers laboring in extreme heat, scientists working through the night, soldiers training in harsh conditions, and civilians going about their daily lives in cities that seemed chaotic by galactic standards. They come from a Class 12 death world, Velnari continued. This caused several representatives to emit sounds of surprise. Class 12 worlds were considered barely habitable. Most species evolved on worlds rated Class 5 or lower. Their planet has violent weather systems, active tectonic plates, aggressive megafauna, and a history of periodic mass extinctions. The humans not only survived but thrived. Supreme Executor Krax's crystalline form brightened, a sign of interest. A warrior species, then. Perhaps they could be useful as shock troops for the Empire. I wouldn't assume that, Velnari cautioned. When I mentioned that some species might see Earth's resources as valuable and attempt to claim them, President Martinez laughed. Actually laughed. She said, "They're welcome to try. We've gotten pretty good at dealing with things that want to kill us." The council found this response amusing. The humans clearly didn't understand the power dynamics of galactic civilization. The Zafrani Empire alone commanded fleets of thousands of ships, each capable of devastating entire worlds. What could one small species do against such might? Over the next few months, humanity integrated into the galactic community with surprising speed. They established trade agreements, learned alien languages with remarkable efficiency, and seemed genuinely excited about cultural exchange. Their ambassador to the Galactic Council, a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, became known for her peculiar habit of bringing food from Earth to share during meetings and asking endless questions about other species' histories and cultures. Everything changed when the Zafrani Empire decided that Earth's system contained valuable minerals that would be better served under their control. It was a standard expansion. the kind the Empire had performed hundreds of times. They sent their usual ultimatum: surrender and accept Zephrani rule or face the consequences. Dr. Chen received the message during a council session. She read it, took a sip of her coffee, and said, "No thank you." Supreme Executor Krax's form flared with indignation. "You dare refuse the Zephrani Empire? We have conquered entire sectors. Your species barely has faster-than-light travel." Dr. Chen shrugged, a gesture that had become familiar to the council. "We're not interested in being conquered. We're doing fine on our own." "You will regret this," Krax thundered. "We will blockade your trade routes, isolate your world, and squeeze your economy until you beg for mercy." "Okay," Dr. Chen replied, gathering her belongings. "If that's what you want to do, we'll adapt." The casual dismissal stunned the council. No species had ever responded to a Zephrani threat with such indifference. Some representatives wondered if the humans didn't understand the situation. Others thought they might be suicidal. The Vorthan ambassador, attempting to mediate, spoke up. "Dr. Chen, perhaps you should consult with your government. The Zephrani Empire is not to be taken lightly." Dr. Chen smiled, an expression that some species found disturbing as it showed their predatory teeth. "I have full authority to speak for Earth. Our position is simple. We don't want trouble, but we're not going to roll over for anyone. We've dealt with worse." "Worse?" Krax's form practically vibrated with rage. "What could be worse than the might of the Zephrani Empire?" "Our own history," Dr. Chen replied quietly. "We've survived ice ages, plagues that killed half our population, world wars with primitive atomic weapons, ecological disasters of our own making, and about a dozen near-extinction events. We're still here. So if you want to play games with blockades and economic warfare, go ahead. We'll figure it out. We always do." She left the chamber, leaving behind a very confused and slightly unsettled Galactic Council. The Thraxian scientist who had discovered humanity reviewed his data and noticed something he'd missed before. The quantum signature that had revealed Earth's location came from an experimental weapon test, not a research facility as he'd assumed. The energy readings were consistent with something that could tear holes in space-time itself. He decided not to share this information just yet. Like the rest of the council, he was curious to see what would happen when the Zephrani Empire, in all its might, tried to force a species from a death world to submit. Something told him it wouldn't go as expected. The test of resolve, the Zephrani blockade of human space, began 3 months after Dr. Chen's defiant refusal. It was a textbook operation, hundreds of warships positioned at key jump points, interdiction fields preventing faster-than-light travel, and automated defense platforms creating an impenetrable barrier around the Sol system. Supreme Executor Krax personally oversaw the operation from his flagship, confident that the humans would capitulate within weeks. The first sign that something was different came when human cargo ships approached the blockade. Instead of turning back or pleading for passage, they simply stopped, transmitted "Okay, we'll wait," and began playing something they called music on all frequencies. The Zephrani found the rhythmic sounds annoying but hardly threatening. Back on Earth, President Martinez held a global conference that was broadcast to the entire human population, and unknowingly to the Zephrani, to dozens of hidden observation posts throughout the galaxy that humanity had somehow established in just a few months. "Fellow humans," she began, her voice calm and steady, "alien bullies want to push us around. They think because we're new to space, we're weak. They think because we only have one planet, we're vulnerable. They think because their technology is shinier, we'll give up." She paused, smiled that predatory smile that was becoming humanity's signature. "They're about to learn why Earth is classified as a death world, and it's not just because of the wildlife." The next day, humanity announced the Great Recycling Initiative. Every piece of technology, every vehicle, every non-essential item was to be repurposed. The galaxy watched in confusion as humans began dismantling their own cities, not in panic but with methodical efficiency. What they didn't realize was that humanity was converting civilian infrastructure into something else entirely. Dr. Chen returned to the Galactic Council a week into the blockade, carrying a thermos of coffee and a bag of what she called donuts. She offered them to the other ambassadors as if nothing unusual was happening. "Your people are suffering under our blockade," Krax announced triumphantly. "Surrender now and we will be merciful." Dr. Chen took a bite of her donut. Actually, we're doing fine. The blockade has been great for our economy. Do you know how many jobs we've created with the recycling initiative? Unemployment is at 0% for the first time in human history. You're dismantling your civilization. The Zafrani accused. We're adapting, Chen corrected. Did you know that humans once survived an ice age with nothing but fire and pointy sticks? We're very good at making do with less. What happened next became known as the pest control incident in galactic history books. Small human vessels, barely large enough to hold a single person, began appearing throughout Zafrani space. They didn't attack military targets or civilian populations. Instead, they released what humans called rodents onto Zafrani agricultural worlds. The rats and mice, creatures that had evolved alongside humanity and were considered mere pests on Earth, found the carefully controlled environments of Zafrani farm worlds to be paradise. Within weeks, they had multiplied exponentially, consuming crops and spreading faster than the Zafrani could eliminate them. This is biological warfare. Cracks raged at the next council meeting. Dr. Chen looked genuinely puzzled. Biological warfare? We just had some pest problems on our ships. We're very sorry they spread to your worlds. We tried to warn you that Earth life is remarkably adaptable. Would you like some tips on pest control? We've been dealing with rats for thousands of years. The Vorthan ambassador, ever the mediator, tried to calm the situation. Surely this can be resolved diplomatically. The humans could help eliminate the pests in exchange for lifting the blockade. Oh, we'd be happy to help, Dr. Chen agreed. But we'd need to move our pest control ships through the blockade. Can't exactly help while we're contained. It was a trap and everyone knew it, but the Zafrani were losing billions in destroyed crops daily. They agreed to allow human pest control vessels through the blockade. These ships were oddly designed with massive cargo holds that seemed unnecessary for carrying pest control equipment. The Zafrani inspected them thoroughly but found nothing suspicious. Just standard fumigation equipment and what humans called mousetraps. What the Zafrani didn't realize was that the ships themselves were the weapon. Built from recycled civilian technology, they were designed to fall apart at specific locations, leaving behind debris fields that made navigation hazardous. Within a month, major Zafrani shipping lanes were littered with human accidental debris, causing massive delays and economic disruption. Meanwhile, humanity had restructured their entire society around the blockade. They called it siege mode, a concept apparently drawn from their violent history. Every human colony became self-sufficient. Vertical farms replaced traditional agriculture. Fusion reactors, previously considered too expensive for widespread use, were built from recycled materials. The humans even began broadcasting a reality show called Blockade Life, where families competed to see who could be the most self-sufficient. The show became surprisingly popular among other species, who were fascinated by human creativity. One episode featured a family making coffee from dandelions, creating furniture from compressed garbage, and generating power from their children's playground equipment. The humans treated their potential extinction as entertainment. Ambassador Velnari visited Earth during this time, using her species' advanced cloaking technology to slip past the blockade. What she found astonished her. Instead of a civilization in decline, she discovered humans thriving. Cities had been transformed into vertical ecosystems. People seemed genuinely happy, united by a common challenge. Children played games called Blockade, Runner, and Alien Invasion, laughing as they pretended to fight off superior foes with improvised weapons. She met with President Martinez in what used to be the United Nations building, now converted into a vertical farm with the meeting room preserved in the center, surrounded by growing vegetables. How are your people so calm? Velnari asked. You face potential extinction, yet they seem excited? Martinez laughed. Humans are weird, Ambassador. The more pressure you put on us, the stronger we become. It's like carbon turning into diamonds. Plus, she leaned in conspiratorially, we've been preparing for something like this since we developed fiction. Every human has imagined fighting off an alien invasion at least once. This is actually less challenging than most of our video games. You're treating this as a game? No, we're treating it as an opportunity. Do you know what happened the last time humanity faced extinction? We invented agriculture. The time before that? We developed language. Pressure makes us evolve, Ambassador. The Zafrani think they're destroying us. They're actually making us stronger. As if to prove her point, an aide entered with a report. Madam President, the prototype is ready. Martinez smiled. Excellent. Ambassador, would you like to see something interesting? She led Velnari to an underground facility where humans had been working on something called Project Honey Badger. It was a ship, unlike anything in the known galaxy. Instead of elegant lines and efficient design, it was ugly, asymmetrical, and looked like it had been welded together from spare parts. Because it had been. This is humanity's answer to the blockade, Martinez announced. It doesn't use traditional FTL. Instead, it punches holes through space-time using a process we call aggressive negotiation with physics. It's powered by fusion reactors made from recycled washing machines and cars. The hull is compressed garbage reinforced with carbon nanotubes we've been growing in sewage treatment plants. This is insane, Velnari whispered. This is human, Martinez corrected. We don't play by galactic rules because we never learned them. We make our own. The ship designated HSS Don't Give a Damn successfully punched through the Zephrani blockade on its maiden voyage, not by avoiding the interdiction fields but by literally tearing through them. The energy signature was so chaotic that Zephrani sensors couldn't even identify it as a ship until it was already past. The message it carried to the Galactic Council was simple. The blockade is inconvenient. Please remove it or we'll remove it ourselves. P.S. And the rats were an accident. The next thing won't be. The breaking point, the destruction of New Tasmania, changed everything. When the Zephrani Empire, frustrated by humanity's refusal to capitulate, decided to make an example of the small human colony, they expected fear to ripple through human space. New Tasmania had been home to 30,000 souls, mostly families seeking a new life among the stars. The Zephrani fleet arrived, delivered a 1-hour evacuation warning, then reduced the planet's surface to molten glass. The human response was silence. For 48 hours, not a single communication came from Earth or any human vessel. The Galactic Council held an emergency session, expecting either complete surrender or a declaration of total war. Instead, Dr. Chen arrived with her usual thermos of coffee and a black armband on her sleeve. 30,143, she said quietly, setting down her coffee. That's how many people you murdered. We got most of them evacuated, but 143 chose to stay. They were farmers who wouldn't abandon their land, elderly who couldn't travel, and medical staff who stayed to help them. Supreme Executor Crax's crystalline form gleamed with satisfaction. Now you understand the price of defiance. Surrender, or we will glass every human world. Dr. Chen nodded slowly. We understand perfectly. You've made it clear that you're not interested in coexistence. So we're going to explain something about humans that you should have researched before starting this. She stood, her usually friendly demeanor replaced by something the alien representatives had never seen from her before. We don't do proportional response. 3 days later, every Zephrani military installation simultaneously received packages delivered by human vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere. The packages contained what looked like simple earth flowers, roses specifically, with a note, "From New Tasmania, with love." Within hours, every Zephrani who had come into contact with the roses began experiencing what humans called hay fever, a minor allergic reaction on Earth. But Zephrani biology, evolved in sterile controlled environments, had no defense against Earth's biological chaos. The reaction was severe, not lethal, but completely debilitating. The entire Zephrani military command structure was reduced to quivering, sneezing, fluid-leaking messes within a day. But that was just the beginning. Human ships, the ugly patchwork vessels built from recycled materials, began appearing over Zephrani worlds. They didn't fire weapons or drop bombs. Instead, they broadcast human history 24 hours a day on every frequency. The broadcasts started with humanity's greatest achievements: art, music, science, philosophy. Then came the darker parts: World War I, World War II, the Holocaust, Rwanda, Pol Pot, Stalin. Every genocide, every war, every moment of human brutality, broadcast in excruciating detail. But most disturbing to the Zephrani was how humans had recorded it all, learned from it, and continued forward. "You killed 30,000 of us," the broadcast repeated. "We've killed millions of our own and survived. We've split atoms over cities. We've turned chemical weapons on our own people. We've committed every atrocity you can imagine and some you can't. And we're still here, still fighting, still refusing to give up." Do you really want to see what we're capable of when we stop holding back? The psychological effect on the Zafrani was devastating. Their species had achieved spaceflight through cooperation and peaceful development. They had never experienced true war, only expansion against weaker species. The human broadcasts showed them a species that had been forged in the fires of its own brutality and survived. Then came the siege of Zafrani Prime. Human ships didn't attack the capital world. They surrounded it and began what they called aggressive negotiations. Every incoming supply ship was politely turned away. When the Zafrani sent military vessels, the humans didn't fight them. They simply moved their patchwork ships into the path of the Zafrani weapons, broadcasting footage of human children from New Tasmania on all frequencies. "Go ahead," they transmitted. "Fire, add to the count. We're keeping score." The Zafrani couldn't. Their entire self-image was built on being the dominant but civilized power. They couldn't fire on ships broadcasting images of children they had already killed. Meanwhile, Zafrani Prime began to run short on resources. The crystalline beings required specific minerals to maintain their forms, minerals that were suddenly unavailable. Ambassador Velnari managed to arrange a meeting between President Martinez and Supreme Executor Krax on a neutral station. The human leader arrived alone, carrying no weapons, wearing a simple black suit with a pin showing the flag of New Tasmania. "You murdered our people," Martinez said without preamble. "It was a military action," Krax responded, though his harmonic voice carried uncertainty. "It was a mistake," Martinez corrected. "Let me explain something about humans that your researchers apparently missed. We don't care about dying. Every human knows they're going to die from the moment they understand what death is. We live on a planet where everything, from tiny bacteria to massive predators, can kill us. We've made peace with death. What we can't make peace with is unnecessary death. Pointless death. Cruel death." She pulled out a tablet and showed images, not of New Tasmania's destruction, but of its life. Children playing, farmers working, families celebrating holidays. Every one of these people had a name, a story, dreams. You turned them into glass because we wouldn't bow to you. So now we're going to give you a choice. "You're in no position to make demands," Krax said, though he sounded less certain. "Aren't we?" Martinez smiled that predatory smile. "Your military is incapacitated with allergies. Your supply lines are cut. Your population is terrified of us because they've seen what we do to ourselves. Your economy is crashing because of rats we accidentally let loose, and we haven't even started trying to hurt you yet. What do you want?" "Surrender," Martinez said simply. "Complete, unconditional surrender of the Zafrani Empire to humanity." The crystalline being's form flickered with disbelief. "You're one species." "A primitive one. We control a quarter of the galaxy." "Controlled," Martinez corrected. Past tense. "See, while you were playing Empire, we were studying. Every species you've conquered hates you. They just feared you more. But now they've seen you brought low by flowers and rats. How long do you think your empire will last when word spreads that humans made the mighty Zafrani afraid?" She stood to leave, then turned back. "You have 1 week to decide. Surrender or we stop being nice." "This is you being nice. We haven't killed a single Zafrani. We've inconvenienced you, embarrassed you, scared you, but we haven't killed anyone. That's us being nice. 1 week." The week passed with the galaxy watching in stunned silence. The Vorthan Alliance offered to mediate, but both sides refused. Other species began pulling back from Zafrani space, not wanting to be caught in whatever happened next. Some began reaching out to humanity, offering support or at least non-aggression pacts. On the 6th day, humanity demonstrated why Earth was classified as a death world. They revealed that the pest control ships that had been spreading throughout the galaxy weren't just dropping off rats. They had been seeding every habitable world with Earth microbiome samples. Bacteria, viruses, fungi, all the microscopic life that humans lived with every day without thinking about it. "Every human carries about 3 pounds of bacteria," Dr. Chen explained to the horrified Galactic Council. "We're not individuals. We're walking ecosystems. We've had millions of years to adapt to these organisms. You haven't. Now, we're not going to release anything dangerous. But imagine if every world in Zafrani space suddenly had the common cold. The flu, athlete's foot, nothing lethal, just annoying. Forever." The threat was clear. Humanity could make life in Zafrani space unbearable without firing a shot. They could turn the Empire's own worlds against them, using nothing more than the organisms humans considered normal. On the 7th day, Supreme Executor Krax announced the surrender of the Zephrani Empire. But humanity's response surprised everyone once again. "We accept your surrender," President Martinez announced. "And now we're going to help you." The confusion in the galaxy was palpable. The humans had won. Why would they help their defeated enemy? "Because," Martinez explained, "that's what humans do. We fight hard, but we build harder. Every enemy can become an ally. Every war can end in peace. We're going to help you fix your agricultural worlds, cure your military of their allergies, and teach you how to live with Earth life. In exchange, you're going to help us rebuild New Tasmania and ensure nothing like this ever happens again." The new order, the integration of the Zephrani Empire into what became known as the Human Commonwealth, was nothing like the subjugation the galaxy had expected. Within days of the surrender, human medical teams were on Zephrani worlds not as conquerors but as doctors. They brought antihistamines for the allergies, pest control solutions for the rats, and something no defeated species had ever received from their conquerors: respect. Former Supreme Executor Krax, stripped of his military title but retained as a civilian administrator, found himself working directly with President Martinez on the reconstruction efforts. He had expected humiliation, possibly execution. Instead, she handed him coffee and a hard hat. "You know construction, right?" she asked during their first planning meeting. "Your species builds those incredible crystal cities. We could use that expertise on New Tasmania. You want me to help rebuild the world I destroyed? I want you to help build something better than what was destroyed. That's the human way. We don't just rebuild, we improve." The galaxy watched in astonishment as human efficiency transformed the former Zephrani Empire. The ugly patchwork ships that had terrorized Zephrani space were revealed to be modular construction vessels. Within weeks, they had established supply lines, medical facilities, and something the Zephrani had never seen before: public schools that taught both human and Zephrani history, with nothing censored or hidden. Dr. Chen addressed the Galactic Council with a proposal that would have been laughable months earlier. "Humanity offers membership in the Commonwealth to any species that wants it. No conquest, no subjugation, just mutual defense and shared prosperity. The only requirement is that you contribute what you can and help those who need it." The Vorthon ambassador was first to respond. "And if a species attacks the Commonwealth?" Dr. Chen's smile was different now, warmer but somehow more terrifying. "Then they learn why humans survived Earth. We protect our own." The first test came sooner than expected. The Skithari hegemony, seeing the Zephrani Empire's fall as an opportunity, launched an invasion of former Zephrani territories now under Commonwealth protection. They were a true warrior species, evolved from pack predators with advanced military technology and a culture built entirely around combat. The human response was swift and bizarre. Instead of meeting the Skithari fleet with military force, they sent a single diplomatic vessel carrying what they called the documentary. It was 12 hours of footage from Earth: honey badgers fighting lions, wolverines driving away bears, humans running marathons in deserts, climbing mountains without oxygen, swimming with sharks, and living in places where the air itself could freeze your lungs. The final hour was devoted to human military history, focusing on something called guerrilla warfare. The message was simple: we evolved on a world where everything tries to kill you, and we became the apex predator. We invented war as a sport. Do you really want to fight us? The Skithari, being actual predators, understood the message immediately. They withdrew, but not before sending a request to join the Commonwealth. They wanted to learn human military tactics, particularly something called asymmetric warfare, that seemed to violate every known principle of military engagement. Within a year, the Commonwealth had grown to include 15 species. Each brought their own strengths: Zephrani construction, Vorthon diplomacy, Skithari military prowess, and others. But it was the humans who held it all together, not through force but through sheer stubborn refusal to give up on anyone. The transformation of New Tasmania became the symbol of the new order. The planet wasn't just rebuilt. It was transformed into something unprecedented. Human agricultural techniques combined with Zephrani crystal technology and Vorthon ecosystem management created a world that could feed billions while maintaining perfect ecological balance. The memorial at the center of the capital listed every name of those lost, but surrounded them with gardens from every Commonwealth world. Former Supreme Executor Krax, now simply Administrator Cracks, stood with President Martinez at the memorial's dedication. "I still don't understand," he said. "We killed your people. Why show us such mercy?" "Because," Martinez replied, "humans have been killing each other for millennia. If we can forgive ourselves, we can forgive others. Plus, waste is stupid. Why destroy what you can convert? Why make enemies when you can make allies? It's basic economics." The real test of human nature came when the Galactic Council itself asked to be absorbed into the Commonwealth. The ancient governing body that had overseen 300 civilizations for a millennium was admitting that humanity's chaotic, aggressive, adaptable approach was more effective than their careful bureaucracy. Ambassador Velnari presented the formal request. "We've spent centuries believing that civilization meant control, order, predictability. You've shown us that chaos properly directed is more powerful than any amount of control." Dr. Chen, now the Commonwealth's chief diplomat, accepted on one condition: no more classifications. No more Death World versus Paradise World. Every world is dangerous to something. Every species is deadly in their own way. We're all just trying to survive. The integration revealed humanity's greatest secret, the one thing they had hidden throughout the entire conflict. Earth's united military, the force everyone assumed must be massive to challenge the Zafrani Empire, consisted of exactly 57 combat vessels. The thousands of ships that had appeared throughout the galaxy were converted cargo haulers, passenger liners, and mining vessels. The weapons that had brought down an empire were flowers, rats, and history lessons. When this was revealed, the galaxy's response was mixed. Some were horrified that they had been defeated by such a small force. Others were impressed by the sheer audacity. The Scythari were delighted, seeing it as the greatest military deception in galactic history. "How?" Cracks asked Martinez during a Commonwealth planning session. "How did you defeat us with 57 ships?" "We didn't defeat you with ships," Martinez explained. "We defeated you with psychology. Every species evolves to survive their environment. Yours evolved in a controlled, predictable environment, so you think in terms of direct force and clear hierarchies. We evolved in chaos, so we think in terms of adaptation and misdirection. We didn't beat your military. We beat your assumptions." The Commonwealth's first major crisis came from an unexpected source: the Isolation Syndicate, a group of species that had isolated themselves from galactic society centuries ago. They saw humanity's influence as a contamination and launched a purification campaign to eliminate human presence from the galaxy. The Commonwealth's response demonstrated how much the galaxy had changed under human influence. Instead of a unified military response, each member species contributed their unique solution. The Vorthon negotiated. The Scythari provided defense, the Zafrani built barriers, and the humans did what they did best. They adapted. Human colonists in threatened areas didn't evacuate. They integrated deeper, forming bonds with local populations, sharing their technology and culture so thoroughly that removing human influence would mean destroying the local society. It was cultural guerrilla warfare, and it was devastatingly effective. The Isolation Syndicate found themselves facing not human military might, but the combined resistance of every species humans had befriended. Their purification campaign failed not because they were defeated, but because they couldn't find a pure target. Humanity had spread like a beneficial virus, improving and strengthening everything they touched. 5 years after first contact, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The rigid hierarchies and careful borders of the old order had been replaced by a chaotic but vibrant network of interconnected species. Trade flowed freely, technology was shared openly, and conflicts were resolved through what humans called aggressive negotiation, which usually involved a lot of shouting, some threats, and eventually, shared drinks. Dr. Chen retired from diplomacy to teach at the new Commonwealth Academy on rebuilt New Tasmania. Her final address to the Galactic Council, now the Commonwealth Assembly, became required reading for all diplomatic students. "Humans don't give a damn about your rules because we've learned that rules are just suggestions that haven't met exception yet. We don't care about your hierarchies because we've been on both the top and bottom of our own, and know they're meaningless. We don't fear death because we've lived with it as a neighbor. What we care about is simple: survival. Not just of ourselves, but of everyone we meet. Because in the end, that's what humans do. We survive, and we drag everyone else along with us, kicking and screaming if necessary, into a better future." The final proof of humanity's transformation of the galaxy came from an unexpected source. The ancient archive keepers of the Thraxian Collective, who had observed galactic civilization for millennia, made a startling announcement. They revealed that Earth had been deliberately isolated for centuries, classified as too dangerous for contact. Not because of their technology or military might, but because every model showed the same result. Any species that encountered humans would either be destroyed or transformed beyond recognition. We were wrong about one thing, the Thraxian elder admitted. We thought humans would destroy. Instead, they infected the galaxy with their most dangerous trait, hope. The belief that tomorrow can be better than today, no matter how bad today is. It's completely irrational, entirely unscientific, and impossibly effective. President Martinez, now elder stateswoman of the Commonwealth, laughed when she heard this. Of course we're infectious. We evolved on a death world. Everything there is infectious. The only question is whether you're a beneficial symbiote or a parasite. We chose symbiosis. The 10th anniversary of First Contact was celebrated across the Commonwealth with what humans called a barbecue, which apparently meant burning meat over open flames and consuming fermented liquids while telling embarrassing stories. Former Supreme Executor Krax, now wearing a Hawaiian shirt, a human garment that defied all known principles of aesthetics, stood with President Martinez watching the celebration. "I've been thinking," Krax said, his crystalline form shimmering with what humans had learned to recognize as amusement. "When we first met, we thought you were primitive because you didn't follow galactic rules. But you weren't primitive. You were post-rules. You'd already tried every system we were using and moved past them." Martinez raised her beer, another human invention that had somehow spread to every species despite being essentially poisoned grain water. "We're not post-rules, Krax. We just learned that the most important rule is knowing when to break the rules. That's why we don't give a damn about your protocols. We care about results." "And the results speak for themselves," Krax agreed, gesturing at the celebration where a Skithari warrior was teaching Vorthon children something called football, while Zephrani engineers worked with human artists to create sculptures that defied physics. The transformation was complete. The galaxy that had once run on careful protocols and rigid hierarchies now operated on controlled chaos and mutual benefit. Species that had been enemies for centuries now worked together, united not by force or fear but by the human promise. "We're all in this together, so we might as well make it interesting." Dr. Chen, watching from her retirement home overlooking the New Tasmania Memorial, summed it up in her memoirs. "We won not because we were stronger or smarter or more advanced. We won because we were too stubborn to lose, too adaptable to break, and too irreverent to take seriously. We didn't give a damn about being respected. We cared about being effective. And in the end, effectiveness earned us more respect than any show of force ever could." The final entry in the Galactic Council's official records before it dissolved into the Commonwealth Assembly read simply, "Humanity. Approach with caution. They don't play by the rules, they don't give up, and worst of all, they're contagious. Symptoms include increased adaptability, irrational optimism, and a disturbing tendency to solve problems with duct tape and profanity. No cure exists, nor is one desired." And in the end, that's all that needed to be said about the species that didn't give a damn about galactic rules but cared deeply about galactic survival. They had turned the ordered galaxy into a beautiful mess, and no one wanted it any other way.